Iwanaga is your typical anime loli who lost her eye and leg at a young age. In exchange for her sacrifice, she was made the goddess of wisdom and the mediator of all spirit creatures such as specters, yokai, and ayakashi. Iwanaga's got a hard crush on Kuro, a mysterious boy who is the bujiman for all spirits. After a series of events, Kuro and Iwanaga develop their relationship as they navigate between the logical and illogical worlds. Things take a downward spiral and they're faced with the vengeful spirit of an idol involved in a mysterious crime scene. A little girl finds herself in the middle of God knows where land where a voice calls out to her to become their goddess of wisdom. The anime begins with a time skip into the present. The same girl, Kotoko Iwanaga, wakes up from her nap. Picking up her cane, she walks her way to Kuro, a boy who is minding his business. Iwanaga straight up tells him that she saved his life, but the poor guy is like, "Who dis?" and doesn't remember being involved in dangerous situations. Iwanaga tells him that the incident happened 2 years ago at the same hospital. In a flashback, it's revealed that she covered his fall from behind. The loli wanted Kuro to be indebted to her for the rest of her life for this life-saving monumental achievement. There, the loli remarked that Kuro boasted the spirit of a goat, and while this is a metaphor, he really is a goat, as you'll find out later. Anyway, Iwanaga wanted some of his meat and became infatuated with Kuro. Unfortunately, Kuro, being the man of culture that he is, had a girlfriend. He one-upped everyone by scoring with a chick a year older than him. The news of their thriving relationship echoed through the hospital staff. Loli's hopes were getting dashed until one day she noticed Kuro sitting all by himself as if he was on that villain arc shit. Iwanaga confirmed from the staff that he got his dumbass dumped by the baddie. Kuro thinks it's strange that the hospital has no regard for his privacy, but then again, it's 2024, so I doubt they care. Kuro questions Iwanaga's intentions. It comes as no surprise that the loli wants to date him with a planned marriage. Kuro doesn't want to catch a case for life, but Iwanaga reveals that she's 17 and in high school. Kuro is glad that he's not as bitchless or risless as he thought he was going to be after getting dumped. Kuro answers that he's incapable of dating someone else due to how his previous relationship ended. Iwanaga demands an in-depth documentary, or in Gen Z terms, the tea. Kuro explains that they went on a date in Kyoto where, at night, they encountered a strange creature called a kappa. Kuro is certain that it was not an animal, and he's right because this thing looks like a damn water Pokemon. Kuro states that it was a terrifying experience, even though Iwanaga knows that kappa is not known to be hostile. Kuro mentions that a body was found dead the following day, so they were sure this little guy was involved. Saki, Kuro's girlfriend, didn't believe in ghosts and clung to her Sigma male for protection. Iwanaga questions the conclusion. Kuro explains that the creature just ran off in fear like a coward. Kuro got dumped because his girlfriend had doubts about his real self. He doesn't care if a loli believes him or not and finds it hilarious how he's blaming a damn kappa for his breakup. Kuro maintains his stance, not seeking a relationship. As he is leaving, Iwanaga stops him dead in his tracks. The 300 IQ loli is able to read between the lines and realizes that Kuro is the reason that the kappa ran off terrified. She believes that Saki saw the darkness in Kuro, which was even capable of scaring off a kappa. Fearing those reasons, Saki trembled and broke up. After her expert analysis, Kuro pulls an "I was joking" excuse to make it seem like this story never even happened. Iwanaga sees through his bullshit and states that she interacts with demons, yokai, specters, and ayakashi on the regular. Even now, her inhuman friends are observing them from close by. All of them share the opinion that Kuro is just the one guy they don't want to fuck with. Kuro questions how she's confident of their existence. Iwanaga reveals her backstory. She was kidnapped by the same creatures when she was 11. The creatures boasted 1 IQ each and begged her to become their goddess of wisdom. Suffering from the "I'm just a girl" disease, Iwanaga accepted. Ever since then, she's been acting as a mediator among their kind. Iwanaga even tells Kuro to read a newspaper about her disappearance if he's looking for proof. She was discovered with a missing right eye as well as a severed left leg after the incident. Spilling her side of the story, Iwanaga leaves and hops on the bus where she encounters a yokai who looks like a great candidate for a horror movie villain. The creature lunges forward to make it seem like it's about to devour the loli, but it's actually a concerned yokai worried for Iwanaga's safety. Even though her ghostly friends are batshit scared of Kuro, the loli is ignoring the red flags because she finds this man attractive as hell. The yokai informs Iwanaga about the creature that has taken over the library. Iwanaga thinks it will be a piece of cake to handle it because of Kuro. It is shown how Iwanaga was made a god by sacrificing her limbs, although nothing regarding her interactions with the yokai is known to the world or confirmed by any sources. The following day, Kuro finishes his research on the goddess loli and comes to his conclusions. Iwanaga is one step ahead, waiting for him. Kuro expresses his doubts and Iwanaga counters. stating that she might be crazy just like him. Suddenly, one of Iwanaga's spirit friends informs her about the library spirit. Kuro doesn't want any part of it, but Iwanaga guilt trips the heck out of him by saying his potential girlfriend might just get murdered. The two of them arrive at the scene where they discover the ghost from before. It startles the shit out of Kuro. The monster is revealed to be a terrorizing force that tramples the balance of humans and Ayakashi. Iwanaga is there to maintain this balance, but her yapping nearly devours her. Thankfully, Kuro saves the loli, who is surprised that the creature is in such a panic that it ignores Kuro's terrifying existence. Iwanaga bashes a fire extinguisher but gets her shit tossed. In typical anime fashion, Kuro saves her and thinks this is no time to be playing around. Iwanaga suggests running away, but Kuro wants to stand on business and whoop the creature's butt. He extends his hand, allowing the creature to devour his arm as he stands unfazed. Iwanaga is shocked that this man feels nothing. Hey! Even after all that, he's just too cold for her. Kuro regenerates his arm in seconds, revealing that his flesh is literal poison to the Ayakashi. The monster implodes in a gruesome fashion, forcing Iwanaga to question Kuro's true identity. Kuro uses her own words and states that when he was 11, he consumed 2 kinds of yokai flesh as much as he possibly could. This man is a demon to the demons. It's a regular day for Kuro, who is visiting his hospitalized cousin. The obsessed loli about having his size stalks him, thanks to her yokai. Iwanaga holds onto her skirt as the yokai runs off because Kuro traumatizes ghosts. Later, Iwanaga tells Kuro that he's the talk of the evening among the yokai. In their eyes, he's considered an SSS tier villain. Kuro thinks it's a little harsh to treat him that way, considering he literally saved their dumbass not too long ago. Iwanaga feels sad that she had to drag Kuro into her mess, while Kuro demonstrates how his body is basically invincible, repairing itself no matter the injury. Kuro explains that one of the yokai he devoured possessed mermaid flesh, which is believed to grant immortality. He refuses to elaborate on the other yokai that he consumed. As he's about to flee from the loli, Iwanaga requests that he accompany her on a visit to the giant serpent god. The serpent is troubled, which calls for Iwanaga to help alleviate its concerns. Kuro calls her an idiot for getting herself tangled in dangerous situations where she can barely even walk. Iwanaga invites him to accompany her, but our boy doesn't simp and tells her that he's got his pork soup to enjoy. A pissed Iwanaga has to travel by herself in the dead of the night. She arrives in the domain of the water god. The serpent explains its misery as humans no longer worship him as the water god. His shrine has withered and he's basically Yedo from Noragami at this point. Iwanaga casually butts in that she has a boyfriend, Kuro, and she's annoyed that he didn't accompany her. A few hours before her departure, Iwanaga stalked Kuro with her creepy crawlies. Kuro called her stupid for wearing such an outfit into the mountains. He forces Iwanaga to wear a hoodie to keep her warm. My guy also floods her with his bug repellent spray, maybe because he thought it would be enough to kill her or something. Kuro prepared some food for the journey, but Iwanaga was still annoyed he didn't come. The serpent inquires why Kuro refuses to come, which annoys her even more. It is revealed that Kuro outstalked the stalker by stalking Iwanaga into the mountains. As for the main purpose of the visit, the serpent reveals his troubles over the murdered corpse found recently in his lovely swamp. A woman came and dumped a body a month back, which was discovered by hikers. The body was missing credentials and had marks. Regardless, the man was identified as Yoshihara, and the only suspect in the case admitted to the murder. Oitanio skipped the bullshit and went, "Yeah, I stabbed this dude," closing the case as soon as it opened. Iwanaga believes that she dumped the body to hide it, but the serpent god thinks she had another motive. The serpent god can't fathom her objective of hiding the body, knowing that the corpse would rise up to the river soon. Iwanaga adds that Tanio immediately confessed to the police that she wanted the body to be devoured by the serpent god, a mythological creature. Iwanaga is still convinced that Tamio wanted the serpent god to eat the human trash to make it a perfect hiding spot. The serpent god objects to her argument by stating how Tanio wanted the body to be found instead of requesting him to devour it. Iwanaga restarts the timeline. She begins with Oe Tanio's story, who had a boyfriend called Machi. Machi was believed to have done a double suicide, all Romeo and Juliet style. Machi used to grind on his job but ended up with a case of embezzlement of a boatload of money. Machi couldn't handle the pressure of being found out and eventually did a double KOIS. Tanio was believed to be extremely hurt over the matter and returned to her family home. Tanio lived comfortably until one day Yoshihara turned up looking like a corporate slave junkie. Yoshihara openly admitted his faults for what happened in the case with Machi. The zombie took all of the blame because ever since Machi's death, Yoshihara was struck with a curse by the gacha gods and lost everything in his life. Long story short, Tanio shanked the zombie to the afterlife and dragged his lifeless body to the serpent's swamp. Despite these added bits of the story, Iwanaga believes that Tanio didn't commit the act of murder herself, allowing the real murderer, which was Machi's younger brother, to get away without a scratch. Tanio's intention was not to make a request to the serpent god, but rather to anger it and cause an ample amount of rain. The rain allowed her to clear any suspicious hints that Tanio had left out. She felt confident having used the powers of the serpent god. Iwanaga concludes that Tanio desired the serpent god's anger through the disposed body so that the specifics of the murder could be concealed. Iwanaga still has doubts about her own claims, showing that she's an open-minded and well-reasoned person. Kuro comes out of his hideout, making Loli happy. Kuro reminds her that he's not her poster boyfriend with how she's advertising their relationship. As for the serpent god, he is posed with the aching question of the real reason the body was disposed of in the swamp. To answer the important question, Iwanaga argues that Tanio threw something else in the swamp in the past, which was her main objective. She wanted to retrieve that object and manipulated the police to do her dirty work. Knowing that there was no guarantee of the object being found, she prayed, which is what the serpent god likely heard. The serpent god once again questions why she would go through the trouble of doing so much. Iwanaga explains that Tanio wanted the police to catch her as a suspect, allowing a full-blown investigation to take place. Not to mention, the girl yapped about a giant serpent during the interrogation, making it seem like she's got a screw loose at the head. Even though that answers some of the questions, the serpent is left puzzled as to what the object is. Iwanaga believes that it's something of extreme significance and reveals that it's the dead fetus she had with her boyfriend. The bombshell strikes the serpent cold. Iwanaga raises the assumption that Tanio was probably pregnant with Machi's kid before he went out Romeo-Juliet style. The woman was obviously not a fan of her boyfriend's affair and likely despised the child inside of her. After contemplating, Tanio came to a decision that she would regret. Iwanaga states that she became the death of the child whom she buried in the swamp. Tanio later regretted that decision strongly and returned to the swamp to find the fetus, but to no avail. Iwanaga is certain that there are no traces left of the baby inside the swamp since the yokai clean the water daily. Iwanaga thinks that Tanio conjured such a case as well as a prayer to ensure the police would find what she couldn't. The serpent god accepts the explanation in the meantime, but even his panties are in a twist when he sees Kuro accompanying her. Returning home, Iwanaga tells Kuro that Tanio didn't actually lie about anything. Iwanaga weaved one lie after another like a master manipulator for the case. Tanio really wanted the serpent to eat the body for unknown reasons, and this was confirmed through Iwanaga's personal ghost. Since everything lined up perfectly, it quelled the serpent's worries. Iwanaga smartly assessed the situation, showing more of her capabilities to Kuro. Kuro still believes that the loli is reckless and has 1,000 things to worry about. Iwanaga wants Kuro to throw in the towel and accept their dating. The dude is in no mood to comply, but she ends up using him as her personal cushion anyway. After a 2-year time skip, a man is driving on the way home thinking of tits. And I mean that literally because that's what he sees in front of him. The guy sees a baddie with a steel bar and drives himself to the afterlife. The ghost disappears as if it were never there. The following day, 2 police officers are discussing the matter of the accident. While Yumihara summarized the cause to be a puppy jumping in front of the vehicle, her colleague heard that a faceless girl in a flashy dress became the man's doom. Yumihara refused to pay any effort to the details and treated it as a puppy case. Yumihara questions if he's really looking for the steel Lady Nanase. Apparently, Nanase was an idol that died recently, thanks to a steel beam that fell on her. Suffering from a death no different than Rize from Tokyo Ghoul, Nanase's big bedonker's ghost lurked around every night in the city. She donned the same outfit as when she was an idol, and everyone spoke of her as the faceless idol, Nanase. Yumihara gets asked if a ghost is really related to this case in the first place if Steel Lady Nanase is in fact real. Yumihara confirms that she believes the students saw something out of the ordinary. Terada reports that there has been a rise in cases of people reporting the existence of Steel Lady Nanase. The police were taking it as a fun joke at first until shit got serious really quick. It intrigued Yumihara questions if Terada believes in the existence of such creatures. Yumihara believes that it would be quite difficult to pop up in multiple locations like Pennywise, unless you're also a ghost. Terada, being the normal dude that he is, thinks that Steel Lady Nanase is part of a bigger crime that is lurking behind the scenes. Yumihara reflects that he's wrong because Nanase's ghost is actually real, and it's not connected to anything but the crimes she's committing herself. Before Terada leaves, she imparts to him the advice to keep an open mind for things outside of the normal. Yumehara believes that yokai exists in this world because, brace yourselves, she's actually Kuro's ex-girlfriend Saki. Saki is traumatized from her experience with Kuro and remembers the night the kappa appeared. The creature was so terrified that it ran away screaming. That was when Saki realized that the real monster was Kuro, her fiancé, who broke her sense of the world forever. As Saki ascends the road, she still fears the existence of yokai and ghosts because of the way Kuro has influenced her world. Suddenly, a maidenly figure of a petite girl slips and falls. Saki saves her, and the horny loli thinks the pain is nothing compared to her first time. Saki is left utterly confused with the craziness of the bitch. Iwanova thanked the woman and told her to run away. Steel Lady Nanase appears in her idol dress, prepared to fight Iwanova. Iwanova emphasizes that she's very much real, especially that rack she's jealous of. Instead of running away, Saki charges right ahead into the danger. She is fed up of fearing things outside of her control. Saki swerves an attack and tries to gut punch Nanase. Unfortunately, this idiot forgot she's dealing with a damn ghost, so obviously her attacks don't connect. Steel Mommy is about to kill a hoe when our favorite loli comes to the rescue. For the petite figure she has, Iwanova can deliver some brutal kicks, as she does now by tossing Nanase's shit on the ground. Nanase has got more fight in her, but she's withdrawing in the meantime. Saki has no idea what's going on, how a girl is able to hit Nanase when she couldn't. Iwanova clarifies she's not a yokai, but she intends to take care of the Steel Mommy problems soon enough. It's why she's here, and she's certainly not interested in getting police involved. Unfortunately, her luck is beyond rotten as she's dealing with a cop. Iwanova glances at her name and realizes that this hoe is actually Kuro's ex-girlfriend. Remembering her jealousy, Iwanova suddenly feels split-minded about saving her life. Since Saki doesn't know what she's talking about, Iwanova gets ambitious and introduces herself as Kuro's current girlfriend. In response, Saki punches the midget. Episode 4. Iwanova is invited to Saki's home, where she treats her wounds. Iwanova is currently studying at the same university as Kuro. Saki has no memory of the girl in the hospital and calls out Iwanova's lie about being in a relationship with Kuro. Saki tries to be slick and acts like Iwanova is the downgrade, but Iwanova quickly claps back and thinks he adjusted to someone intelligent. Saki pinches her cheeks and wonders if Kuro is desperate, which leads him to meet Iwanova. Iwanova tries to prove their so-called loving relationship through pictures. Unfortunately, Kuro looks like he'd rather die than ever take a picture with Iwanova again. Saki sees past the bullshit and questions Kuro's state. Iwanova claps her by reminding Saki that she ran away from Kuro, destroying the prospects of their marriage. Saki argues that she had no choice but to deal with someone who didn't seem human. Iwanova confirms that both Kuro and herself are unique in certain aspects. The loli properly introduces herself as the goddess of wisdom who mediates the matters of the yokai. They talk about the Steel Lady Nanase, who is currently rampaging around the city. Saki shares the police investigations as Nanase is becoming more violent than ever. Iwanova knows she has to deal with her immediately. Even though Saki has the gut feeling that most yokai are harmless, Nanase is different in the way that she is a vengeful and violent spirit. Iwanova confirms that most yokai are tame and only require peace, which is why they informed her of the Nanase situation from many miles apart. More importantly, Saki questions why Kuro isn't accompanying her since he's the bane of all yokai. Iwanova tries to come up with an excuse that saves her from looking pathetic, but ultimately loses. The midget explains that Lover Boy has been missing for a week and only left a message regarding a personal matter. Saki thinks Kuro really hates the loli as he never ignored any of her calls during their relationship. Saki describes Kuro as the ideal boyfriend who always took care of her, and somehow she fumbled this man. What an L. The two bitches fight over Kuro's meat, but it's clear Iwanova has the advantage since she's with him right now. Iwanova isn't worried about Kuro's state. Knowing that he will recover from all his injuries, Saki realizes that she knows about his secret and feels guilty that this girl decided to stay while she fled from the man. Saki is confident that Iwanova isn't acting in her life for Kuro. Iwanova wants to resolve the Nanase case soon and leaves with her Godzilla-sized skeletal titan. As for Saki, she initiates her research on Nanase, who was an ordinary idol who achieved a little bit of fame before her death. Nanase's curvaceous beauty landed her in a show, and I won't even bother going over how cringe the opening sequence was. During her web search, Saki stumbles across a dark site dedicated to the faceless Steel Lady Nanase. This website contains records of the accidental death of Nanase's father. Months after his death, suspicion began falling around Nanase as her father dropped a number of hints regarding his crazy daughter. He also had an insurance policy on him, so I guess she wanted to chase that bag. Not long after, Nanase wound up in a hotel, not knowing that she would meet her death in the same location. The following day, Saki questions if Terada believes in Steel Lady Nanase as a ghost. Terada confirms that it may be possible for Nanase to return as a vengeful spirit because of the rumors that society spread against her. Terada doesn't believe that she's a full-fledged ghost because he thinks Nanase's ghost is pandering to the masses as an idol when she shouldn't. Saki reflects that he's actually right in this case, even though Terada doesn't fully believe that Nanase is a real case of a vengeful spirit. The scene switches to the goddess of wisdom, Iwanaga, who is unable to plan a strategy against Nanase. Knowing that she's a violent spirit capable of attacking humans, Iwanaga guessed that she'd be able to talk to her. However, Nanase seemed like an empty puppet with nothing but vengeful feelings coursing through her body. Iwanaga comes across the same website as Saki and draws a terrifying conclusion that has not yet been revealed. Iwanaga feels the urgency to contact Saki and tap into the police's information system regarding Nanase's case. Returning to Saki, she delves deeper into Nanase's demise as a human and the specifics of the accident. An older man confirmed to have found her body under the steel pipes. Her perfect face got bashed and her death was ruled out as an accident. Because of Nanase's reputation as an idol, the case is time-consuming for the police to solve since their reputation is on the line. More importantly, Saki is concerned with the statements of Nanase's older sister. Suddenly, Saki hears light knocking on her window. She finds herself scared shitless like anyone would if they knew ghosts are real. It's actually revealed to be a small spirit who came to inform her about Iwanaga's request to seek help from Saki. The gremlin is waiting for Saki to arrive with usable documents. Suddenly, Iwanaga reported the sighting of Steel Lady Nanase from nearby. Iwanaga feels the need to hurry to the site and even preps the yokai kid to scare the crap out of Saki again. After planting her trap, the little demon rushes to the location. There, she finds Steel Mommy beating up a regular dude. It turns out this regular dude isn't the average Joe, it's actually Kuro, who's standing his ground. Episode 5. Iwanaga sees Kuro unsteadily tackling Nanase. Even though he boasts no sports or martial arts ability, Kuro's immortal regeneration nullifies his weaknesses. An angry Saki turns up at the scene because the gremlin is making a fool out of her. Saki sees Nanase fight a human and wants to help, but Iwanaga thinks that Kuro is prepared to get his head smashed at least once. Saki is shocked to realize that it's her ex who's dealing with Nanase. Saki tries to help, but Iwanaga stops her. Saki is worried while Iwanaga explains that Nanase is physically stronger than Kuro. She adds that even death is nothing to worry about for Kuro as he will immediately rise because of the immortal effects of the mermaid's flesh. That is exactly what happens when Kuro is cornered and has a steel beam shoved in his skull. Saki's quivering at the sight of his death makes Iwanaga realize that she's never seen Kuro die before. The gremlin questions why she broke up with him at all. Saki explains that she saw his inhuman side as he regenerated lost fingers or cuts that shouldn't heal at once. While these are cons to Saki, Iwanaga reflects that his abilities don't make him a creep but a formidable partner. She thinks highly of his powers but thinks that Saki's thinking is different. While Saki is lamenting her decisions, she is brought to a halt, questioning how Kuro is the only person in his family who remains immortal. Kuro channels infinite RCT like Gojo and returns to the business. He walks up to Steel Mommy and literally uses Ultra Instinct to get behind her. Kuro chokes her from behind, making Nanase enjoy some of the experience. Saki is shocked at how easy it was for him to get the better of her, as if everything was meant to happen this way. Iwanaga explains that Nanase's powers are easy to predict, allowing Kuro's second ability to kick into effect, the ability to declare the future. Realizing that Saki knows nothing about the dark truth of his family, Iwanaga shares their history. 10 generations before the birth of Kuro, the head of the Sakuragawa family was in search of acquiring the Kunin's prophetic powers. The yokai Kunin was capable of predicting good and bad futures for the prosperity or downfall of the family. The yokai's flesh was fed to his people, who died in one of many ways after consumption. Some even died after predicting the future, which would turn out accurate even after their deaths. Realizing that his experiments were going nowhere, this mad scientist stumbled across a scroll regarding a mermaid yokai. The head of the Sakuragawa family sparked a brilliant idea to immortalize his people, as well as grant them prophetic powers. So he decided to feed both yokai to his people, which all led to their deaths. Many generations pass, and no successful survivors of the experiments remain. One day, Kuro's grandmother called him for dinner. Kuro leisurely munched on his food when suddenly every kid apart from him instantly died from the effects of the food. Kuro remained unfazed in his condition, not experiencing any kind of illness. Kuro's grandmother knew that she had succeeded, and to test Kuro's powers, she basically killed this guy a million times in a million different ways. Now you know why he's unfazed. It's because it literally feels nothing to him. Kuro became numb to pain, and the generation-long experiment of the Sakuragawa family finally became true. Contrary to their expectations, Kuro became inhuman as well. Back to the fight, Nanase is a feral bitch who's trying to dig out at Kuro's face. Kuro pins her to the ground before snapping her scrawny neck. Iwanava is impressed, but Saki is absolutely terrified of her ex abilities. Turns out Nanase is a tough cookie to crack as she prepares to brawl again. Iwanava joins the fight to help Kuro. Knowing that Nanase is about to get jumped Jujutsu Kaisen style, she dips from the fight. Kuro is surprised to find Saki in the city, while Iwanava is jealous that she's getting ignored. Saki questions if they're truly dating at this point. Surprisingly, Kuro confirms that they are, which means the loli did steal his heart in the end. Kuro makes her apologize to Saki, knowing that she's a troublesome idiot. Saki doesn't care as much as she focuses on the Nanase case. The fake bitch shares a drink with her ex-boyfriend, making Iwanaga second-guess her idea of calling Kuro over. They are at Saki's place, where Kuro is quietly admiring Saki's beautiful body. Iwanaga knows exactly what this simple-minded fool is thinking about despite getting his dumbass dumped. Kuro even ignored Iwanaga's messages because he thought the gremlin was a spam bot. Seki finds herself maintaining her calm around Kuro thanks to Iwanaga's help. Seki questions how Kuro came into contact with Nanase. Kuro reveals that he came to the city on behalf of Iwanaga and unintentionally was led to Nanase by an injured spirit. Normally the peaceful spirits and the little guys are terrified of Kuro, but they've started to trust him as he's dating their goddess of wisdom after all. Iwanaga confirms that Kuro looks like a monster to the creatures, even by monster standards, so it's no surprise they're scared of him. Saki questions the kind of monster Nanase is and if she can be defeated at all. Iwanaga reveals that Nanase is an imaginative creature made from the delusions of humans. To explain her point, Iwanaga claims that monsters of the imagination are counted among the specters. Their existence starts as something mundane, a rumor mixed with a bunch of lies that spread over multiple groups until it becomes something people superstitiously believe in. In fact, that's how the ugly-faced, slit-mouthed woman came to be, as well as other creatures. To put it simply, these creatures are born from gossip and blind belief, deeming them a form made from the imagination of humans. Iwanaga states that while normally these creatures are periodic and die out quickly, Nanase's case is different. Nanase is far different and far stronger, and the answer is quite simple. Everything surrounding Nanase's case gathered no eyewitness but, in fact, gossip over the internet. The very page that contains the wiki article about Steel Lady Nanase is the origin of the creature. It is specifically because the Rule 34 artists wanted to draw a steel mummy finnar of Nanase that she came to life from the digital art. In essence, Nanase's true form lies within the website instead of an external appearance. Steel Lady Nanase is a reckless, imaginative spirit fueled by people's beliefs on the widest information network. Kuro knows of the website and questions how they are going to defeat an idea like that on Earth. Iwanaga strategizes beating fiction with fiction by using the website to its advantage. She requests Saki for help, who initially thinks she wants her to have the website blocked. Iwanaga knows the page won't stay down forever and instead inquires information. Iwanaga's entire plan is to convince the internet that Steel Lady Nanase is actually a fictional character. She wants to tear apart the spirit's powers by convincing the people. Saki has doubts, knowing that people aren't going to accept a rational explanation. Iwanaga explains that her plan is to post something appealing on the forums to gain everyone's attention. Using that post, she'll use rational fiction to strip her of her strengths, exterminating her as a monster of the imagination. Iwanaga intends to create a new story that outshines Nanase's current one, intriguing the people. Even though she's gambling with the truth by manipulating people, Iwanaga emphasizes that there is no other method to exterminate Nanase. They have to address two main problems regarding Nanase's case, the first of which is to clarify the perpetrator responsible for the attacks. The second is the reason behind the attacks. Iwanaga's intention is to propose a solution that argues for both points, gaining the support of those on the internet and constricting Nanase to the overwritten reality. Iwanaga desires Saki's information network to make a foolproof post. The gremlin pounces on her bed and snatches the files Saki had hidden under her bed. This kind of information is exactly what Iwanaga needs since they're after the same goal. Saki is concerned about the perpetrator responsible for the attacks when it doesn't even exist. Iwanaga believes there is a solution to avoid that mess altogether. The objective is to convince people that the ghost of Steel Lady Nanase doesn't exist, no matter the path they take. Saki proceeds to explain the contents of the document. She queries Iwanova about the purpose of Nanase attending a construction site by herself. Kuro believes that someone called her to the location. However, the reports of cigarettes only suggest that Nanase wanted to channel her inner smoker and ended up hiding in the construction site. As for the assumption that someone called her to the location, there are too many flaws that suggest otherwise. Now for the specifics of her death, the police have trouble accepting how the steel beams fell on her. Nanase didn't bother to move from her spot. During this time, the pressure of the Twitter mob and Redditors was getting to her, so she was believed to be suicidal. The police concluded that it was either an accidental or suicidal death. Strangely enough, there was one person believed to have caused her death. Nanase's older sister Hatsumi turned into a psycho after the rumors of the death of their father. She denied Nanase's suicidal state and had enough reason to yeet Nanase into the afterlife. Seeing as they're not making any progress, Iwanova and Kuro suggest going to the location of the crime scene instead. Arriving in the dead of the night, Seki is spooked out, accompanying the dynamic duo. The loli performs her magic circle art, which basically does nothing. Suddenly, a human spirit pops out to say hi. Saki is the first one to lose her shit and run away from sight. Luckily, this spirit was there to witness the demise of the idol Nanase. He remembers vividly how the steel beams fell upon her and how she accepted her death without hesitation. With this confirmed testimony, Iwanova is convinced that Nanase was in a suicidal state of mind during the scene. Meanwhile, Iwanova's plan as the goddess of wisdom is to create fiction that is more convincing than ever using the truths obtained by all parties. Seki is stumped and feels pessimistic about the plan. She points out the obviousness of human nature, how people are unwilling to accept reality and blindly believe in rumors. She questions if Iwanova's lies will be able to remedy all of that. The gremlin explains that the creatures of the imagination are precisely so difficult to create because of human nature. Since each rumor is believable to a certain extent, Iwanova wants to use Kuro to solidify any flaws in her plan with his plot-determining abilities. Bidding farewell to Saki, Iwanova offers to sleep with Kuro for the night, but this man makes her suffer by handing her an easy rejection. Kuro switches the topic and asks if Iwanova really has something planned in her little noggin. Iwanova explains that she'll have to come up with a specific motive for the perpetrator of the story, which is filled with half-truths. After that, she'll rely on Kuro's powers to seal the deal. Kuro declares that he is willing to die as many times as needed for her cause, which in my opinion is more romantic than anything he's said to this midget so far. Some time ago, Kuro explained the nature of his future-determining abilities. While Kuro is capable of seeing infinite futures, both likely and unlikely, he requires a taste of death right before activation of his ability. Kuro's powers also can't function if the future is too unreliable or unlikely. Even though he can die any number of times, Kuro is limited by the paths he's able to grasp. At present, Iwanova questions if Kuro saw a future where they destroyed Nanase in his previous fight. Kuro reveals that the future was out of his reach, so he went for the optimal method at the time. Despite his abilities, Kuro was unable to defeat Nanase for good. Iwanova wants to become Kuro's aide, creating the right circumstances for him to grasp a reliable and obtainable future. If you're still not caught on yet, think of Eren from Attack on Titan. Iwanova is concerned that this guy will try to rebound with his ex with his future ability, but Kuro counters by saying he would have broken up with the midget by now if that was possible. Iwanova understands that Kuro is adrift from sharing his feelings and wonders if he will be able to open up one day. Just when Iwanova was hoping for the worst to be avoided, Steel Lady Nanase ended up killing Detective Terada, the dude who thought she was a prankster of some kind. The worst part is that the news of his death has spiraled an outrage on the internet, solidifying Steel Lady Nanase's rumors even more. Seki is called into question by the investigator after the brutal death of Terada at the hands of the Steel Lady Nanase. The police department believes that someone had a grudge against him in the same department. The chief thinks it's stupid for Terada to pursue the case of the Steel Lady Nanase, since he doesn't believe in that nonsense to begin with. The chief explains that many are beginning to relate the case of his death to the incident of Nanase. It seems like a cruel joke to others, but Saki knows that it's something only the demonic Nanase could do with her powers. Arriving at the rooftop, Saki muses that the case will go unsolved simply because Nanase can only be defeated by those who know the truth about her. At night, Iwanova is hard at work, realizing that everything has gone much worse after the death of the policeman. Iwanova grows exhausted, hoping Kuro will arrive. The man of the hour makes his entrance and feeds the midget some premium chocolate. Iwanova can't, with the audacity of this man, book a separate room for himself in the same Dan hotel. She also can't fathom how a dude with immortal powers is currently coaching her on how she should remain healthy. Iwanova shows Kuro the comments on social media, which are interestingly divided between the recent murder case and Nanase's Bazinga plots. Kuro remembers her chest being soft, which Iwanova slanders him for groping a specter chick. Kuro clarifies that he couldn't afford to do any of that, and neither would he date the flat-chested loli of all girls if that was the case. Anyway, the theories of the ghost of Nanase have strengthened, and the situation is tipping out of control. Iwaniva has strong suspicions to believe that Rika, Kuro's cousin, is involved in this case. Kuro doesn't deny the possibility. As Iwaniva is about to make her moves, Saki plays the cock-blocker card and enters the scene. Saki confirmed by Iwaniva that it was, in fact, Nanase who killed Terada. The situation could have gone in their favor if people thought of a normal murder case, rejecting the possibility of a ghost. It would have massively hindered Nanase's powers and popularity, with Kuro dealing the killing blow. Since things are even more complicated now, there are more variables than ever at play. Iwaniva fears that there will be more victims every night since Nanase has become too strong. In fact, her spell could capture the attention of the news, which would make matters infinitely worse. Saki questions what they should do if not for the logical route. Iwaniva emphasizes that they'll have to settle things once and for all tonight. Iwaniva requests Saki to provide as much information as possible. They collectively brainstorm the thought of a mystery preparator to mask Nanase's crimes. However, there are too many problems ranging from the detective's swift death as well as the intentions of the perpetrators involved. Saki is beginning to realize they'll have to go down an infinite number of lies for each condition to perfectly hit the nail on the head. Iwaniva is fed up with her thoughts and is unable to come up with a proper plan. Suddenly, Kuro suggests the idea of having multiple solutions stacked on top of each other. Kuro explains that whoever popularized the rumors of the Steel Lady Nanase must have maintained the rumor for quite a while to amass a belief. Kuro agrees with Iwaniva's previous tactic of dividing each part of the problem into steps for a solution. The Sigma male is prepared to die for her sake to bring her the answers that she requires. Iwaniva's wee brain begins to think once more while Saki questions how many calculations the girl has done to reach this point and answer every part of the problem. Taking a bite out of the chocolate, Iwaniva declares that she has 4 solutions to work with and that she intends to defeat the massive plots of Nanase once and for all. Kuro pats his tiny hamster for doing a good job. Iwaniva feels the brunt of exhaustion and dozes off to sleep. Leaving her to rest, Kuro discusses the plan with Saki. Kuro intends to pull an all-nighter, stopping Nanase from bodying everyone else in the city. He's going to tank each hit for the people and use Saki to continuously find her again. On a different note, Saki questions when they started dating. Kuro explains that he met Iwaniva nearly 2.5 years back. Saki realizes that it wasn't long after they broke up, but she has no room to speak here since she dumped the dude in the first place. Saki has to constantly bring up how Iwaniva is the opposite of Kuro's type, which signals jealousy as a disease and she's a chronic patient. Saki firmly believes that Kuro's type of girl is Rika. Without a doubt, Rika is the patient that Kuro visited time and again in the hospital. The first time Saki saw Rika, she was stunned by her vampiric beauty. The first time Saki met this pale shoddy, she thought Rika was Kuro's first lover. Saki stormed the F out of that room like she saw a ghost or something. At present, Saki still believes that Rika has bad intentions for Kuro, and it's a good thing he relies on Iwaniva now. Kuro shockingly reveals that Rika is still alive and well. Kuro exclaims that it's not possible for Rika to pass away. After all, Kuro is her cousin, and that can only mean one thing: immortality. Iwaniva wakes up to find both Saki and Kuro distressed. She doesn't know what caused their moods to change while she was napping. Iwaniva fears the worst possibility, thinking that the two of these bitches had a pillow fight in bed. Iwaniva has a mental breakdown when Saki asks her if she's ever met Rika. Iwaniva surprisingly knows Rika quite well as she lived in her mansion for a month. Saki expresses her shock after learning that Rika shares the exact same powers as Kuro. As for Rika living in Iwaniva's mansion, it is because the hospital people were fed up with the girl who never left their beds. Rika decided it was best for her to move in with Kuro for housework. This man Kuro was living the dream, thinking he was about to have the waifu of the year. Kuro told her that he had only one bed, so it was going to be hard. In a state of panic, Kuro sought out Iwaniva's help. Iwaniva is revealed to be a billionaire trust fund baby who's got maids constantly taking care of her. The midget nags Kuro for a while and brings up the thought of doing housework for him. This man Kuro lives a dream, but what I really mean is a nightmare because he knows the dumbass loli will be annoying as hell. Rika ended up moving into Iwaniva's house since she had plenty of rooms. The first time they met, Rika straight up called Iwaniva mid and thought Kuro stooped a little too low even for him. Soon after, they became best friends and even celebrated birthdays together. Rika left a month back, having found herself a job and a place to stay. She cut off contacts and the address was revealed to be fake. At first, homeboy Kuro was silent about the matter. But after 2 weeks, he was tweaking and losing his patience. Kuro left suddenly with a message for Iwanaga. Saki connects the dots and understands that Kuro actually came looking for Rika instead of Iwanaga or the Steel Lady Nanase. Iwanaga reveals that the only way they realized Rika was connected to the case was when she analyzed the art style of the illustration. Steel Lady Nanase's wiki drawing is confirmed to be Rika's creation. Iwanaga posits that Rika had been trying to create a monster of imagination for a while now. After learning of the idol's downfall and the causes that led to it, Rika created the perfect illustration to spin her lore around, giving it heat until it formed into a monster. Rika made the website and the rumors. Kuro followed her trail and ended up in the city. Iwanaga questions if Saki is still able to keep up with the kind of world that they're living in. The midget is trying to see if Ashadi still has her brain intact. Saki connects the dots once more and realizes that Rika abused her death and future determination ability to concretize her choices, allowing the imaginative monster Steel Lady Nanase to bloom. As terrifying as the ability is, Iwanaga knows that even Kuro can't tap into its powers because of the limitations involved. However, in Rika's case, she's truly a monster. Rika is somehow capable of spamming and grasping many futures, increasing her odds with the gacha gods each time. Even though Nanase's ghost would fare very little chance in the real world, it was Rika's ability that made everything a smooth sailing success. Iwanaga's ghost cat comes to inform her about the devilish yokei's location. Saki drives to their destination, subsiding Rika's goal for the time being as they got Nanase to defeat first. The scene switches to Rika, who desires more victims for the night. In order to achieve that, she offs herself yet again to determine the future. Steel Lady Nanase is about to throw hands back to back with our boy Kuro. Even though Kuro has his infinite regeneration ability, Iwanaga is cooking her forum posts in the backseat. Saki wonders if Rika will choose to delete or remove her posts as she is the site admin. Iwanaga thinks she won't out like that since it's a public page and people will fall apart in a counterintuitive way. Saki asks if Iwanaga's 4 solutions will really be enough for the job. Loli explains that she's going to thread together a pile of truth bombs for the users to see. Iwanaga wants the Reddit bros and the Twitter mob to decide the fate of this battle basically. Since each user is anonymous and has their own opinion, only the best keyboard masher will survive this fight. Even though this strategy is a 50-50 gamble, it's the only way they'll ever be able to defeat the monster. Rika's actual truth will weigh against Iwanaga's lies in a battle of mass persuasion, and Loli is in no mood to lose. Kuro enters the battle against Steel Lady Nanase at last. The Redditor commentary finally begins with Iwanaga initiating a thread discussion on the existence of Steel Lady Nanase's legend. Iwanaga initializes her first solution, which involves a physical killer who uses the urban legend of Nanase to hide his criminal acts safely. Having sent out a bait, Iwanaga waits for the commenters and the users of the website to slowly catch on. Iwanaga argues that Terada had a sharp eye on the city, always wanting to act before something went wrong. Unfortunately, the killer knew of Terada's habit, which is why he was aided by the urban legend of the city to hide not one, but many crimes. To achieve this purpose, the killer donned a cosplay getup in the idol's appearance. He set everything according to his plan. Seki questions if this kind of lie will work. Iwanaga doesn't care as she's trying to play chess when everyone else is playing crisscross. Iwanaga follows that the criminal was capable of isolating Terada by baiting him with the rumors of the Steel Lady Nanase. Terada had already been looking deep into the case and became interested enough to venture by himself at night. Meanwhile, the criminal prepared a pendulum trap to plot his death. Everything was set according to plan, requiring a remote control system to release the beam that could split open a head. Saki thinks that Iwanaga described the crime in far too much detail for it to be real. Iwanaga ignored the single brain-celled organism as she was playing the long game here. Iwanaga continues her story about Terada's arrival at the abandoned gas station. Having situated Terada in the desired location, the killer ran away to make preparations. Terada didn't notice until the weight struck him hard enough to bash his head open. Since there were no cars nearby, the weight would have been impossible to notice in dim light. The 4chan users of this anime posed their various objections regarding how Terada should have clearly noticed a weight coming right in front of him and could have tried to block it with his hands. Iwanaga capitalizes on this objection and counters that it's possible the criminal used the weight from behind and pointed the way in a specific direction, leading to the man's death. Saki is impressed that Iwanaga is capable of bullshitting like that on the spot. Despite Iwanaga explaining the nature of the crime to the best of her ability, the obvious question remains as to why the killer took so much risk to achieve his objective. There is also the unexplained aspect of using Nanase's legend. One of them even thinks that poison may have been an easier way to subdue the detective instead of the risk. Saki knows that this is a troublesome objection. Iwanaga expertly answers this question by alluding to the fact that the killer pinned the blame on the urban legend. The killer wanted to redirect the focus of the crime and pin it on the legend instead of himself. Assuming the killer was a girl with low physical aptitude, no one would believe that she was capable of putting down an expert detective. To conclude Iwanaga's suspicion that the killer is indeed a woman. Iwanaga confidently answered why the legend was used and justified the reasoning for the way the killing happened. Knowing the information they possess about the killer, Iwanaga confidently states that the killer must be police station woman who knows perfectly well about Terada. That's how she figured out his height and directed him to the location reliably for her motive. With that said, Iwanaga's done with her first Twitter essay, hoping to gain the support of the internet weaves. While Kuro is getting his ass beat by an overpowered Nanase, Saki is shocked that Iwanaga was able to influence the direction of the forum in her own way. She allowed people to believe the existence of a killer. Saki is also late to realize that the midget indirectly pinned the blame on her since she's the policewoman in the story. Luckily, this is all fiction and lies, so Iwanaga isn't worried about what becomes of that. Not to mention, Iwanaga knows that her first solution won't stick around. That is exactly what happens as people begin tearing apart her proposed explanation. Seki is baffled because people change their minds in an instant. Iwanaga explains that this is the work of Rika's future-determining ability to influence reality. Kuro tried to bend the past in his favor, but Rika was far ahead of him. With the website hosting an enormous number of users without problems, Iwanaga has reason to believe that Rika planned this future by herself. She wanted things to happen in such a way, boasting the advantage and the lead in this battle. Kuro and Iwanaga are hellbent on making the people believe that Nanase's fiction is false. Kuro returns to life and begins round 2 of the battle. He is beginning to gain the upper hand, while Iwanaga thinks that victory is within her grasp with the rest of the solutions. Saki is starting to understand Iwanaga's strategy. She's going to weave a number of different truths to fragment Steel Lady Nanase's fan base as much as possible. By allowing people to believe in her non-existence rather than her existence, Iwanaga is bound to accomplish her objective. When one commentator affirms his belief in the vengeful spirit of Nanase by providing an anecdote, Iwanaga initiates solution number 2 of her full-fledged strategy. Check out Iwanaga's second solution. Instead of disproving Steel Lady Nanase, she speaks in favor of her existence with unreasonable means. Seki is stumped as to where she's going with this, while Iwanaga hints that she will exterminate the reason for the appearance of the ghost by exploring this possibility. This time, Iwanaga opens by accepting the case of the murder of Terada at the hands of the Steel Lady Nanase. Iwanaga chooses to delve deep into the reason behind the appearance of the vengeful spirit in the first place. She explores the idea of Nanase's actual death, as per one user's suggestion. Iwanaga shares that Nanase neck-roped her own life, meaning it wasn't some act of misfortune she was against. Iwanaga argues the case that it would seem unreasonable for Nanase to return right after accepting the terms of her death. Not only that, Nanase's chosen weapon is a steel beam, which goes against reason. Nanase returning to the same society that drove her away also sounds counterintuitive when she wants to escape the pressure of the media the most. Iwanaga questions how someone like her could become violent and explicitly kill people. Nanase's descent into despair resulted from the rumors of society that surrounded her father's death. Instilling fear and receiving more criticism from the world would be idiotic in her case. Discounting the possibility of Nanase's violence linked with her hatred for society, Iwanaga explores the idea that Nanase's ghost probably appeared in society to give them a message. Upon being ignored one too many times, she decided to literally ghost them by becoming violent. Iwanaga also adds that Nanase's death may have been linked to a trap set by a killer in this case, so it's possible that she returned to take care of that business and raise concerns about the killer. To explore that path, Iwanaga believes it is necessary to remember which person drove her close to death, the person who accused her of killing her father. Iwanaga reveals to the world that it was actually Nanase's own father who accused her before he even got killed. He left convenient clues for his death, making the unfulfilled Nanase reappear as a ghost to clarify what really happened. Iwanaga believes that her father's notes are bogus because she would have taken care of that proof right after pushing him to his death. The conclusion in this case is crystal clear. Nanase did not lay a finger on her father and never had any malice towards him. Instead, Iwanaga pins the blame on Nanase's cruel father, who became jealous of his daughter's success and intentionally created problems for her. Having developed a complex, Nanase's father concocted a scheme by leaving behind a note that made it seem like Nanase had killed him. He also planned his death in a way that seemed accidental, furthering the blame on his daughter. When word got out to the public about Nanase's father's warnings about his daughter, Nanase became very upset. Her life took a turn, and she found herself at the end of a gruesome accident that ended her life. As Nanase was leaving for the afterlife, she learned the truth from her father and became furious. Nanase rejected her father's doings and reappeared as a vengeful spirit to persuade the people that it was her father all along. Iwanaga sides with Nanase and tells everyone to help remember her as the beautiful idol she once was in order to lead her back to where she belongs. While this is going about, Kuro is literally getting wrecked. My man is testing out 99 ways to die at the hands of this demon killer. Iwanaga's 3000 IQ plan ran opposite to the first solution she proposed, making it entirely difficult for Rika to predict and allowing Kuro to seize on the moment. It doesn't take long for Rika to start regaining control and flow of the conversation. Unfortunately, the name Steel Lady Nanase is a heavy burden for them to deal with, and Iwanaga knows that it's going to take even more than that to defeat Rika's schemes fully. Iwanaga proposes her third solution by arguing that Nanase is, in fact, not a specter of any kind, but a fake ghost created by a living human being. For this solution to work, Nanase is assumed to have taken her own life after being gripped by the harshness of the rumors of her father's death. However, Nanase's sister Hatsumi strongly rebelled against the thoughts of her death, especially through suicide. Seeing her younger sister's brutalized state, Hatsumi couldn't even believe that the body was Nanase's very own. This begged the question of whether or not she died at all. Then Iwanaga claims that there are many ways to fake duplication of a body, so it's not completely out of reach for Hatsumi to believe such a bullish idea. Hatsumi believed that her sister's death had nothing to do with suicide, and thus it was not the corpse she saw. Hatsumi went into madness when she accepted that someone had replaced her little sister's body with a fake one. Hatsumi lived in fear of the fact that the same would happen to her. She became a living, breathing schizo after being traumatized by her sister's downfall. During her breakdown, a mystery man popped out of nowhere to help Hatsumi cope with her sister's death. His idea was to ensure that Nanase's spirit remains alive by making her ghost come to life. Mystery Man basically spent as long as he could prowling the streets, terrorizing people and creating a compelling case for Nanase. The users have their suspicions regarding the suspect being Hatsumi's boyfriend, but even Iwanaga is unclear on his identity. Knowing that the degenerate killed the investigator under the guise of Nanase, he also went after Hatsumi. Iwanaga concludes that their sole focus must be to capture this NPC scumbag and turn him in for good. Kuro is fighting against Nanase as much as he can. Iwanaga is gaining more and more support from the forum with each solution. Kuro gets the Gojo treatment as he turns into a Kit Kat and activates future determination again. However, this time Rika herself has decided to object to Iwanaga's claims. She effortlessly destroys Solution 3 by pointing out the conflation of the suspect's motive. As such, Kuro is unable to grasp hold of the future. Iwanaga is impressed by Rika's skillfulness, even though she's spamming her godly cheat ability to turn the tide in her favor. Saki thinks that the goal is to convert some of the followers through each of the solutions. Iwanaga claims that her objective isn't to gather a bunch of people from each solution. In fact, despite the rejection of each of her conclusions, the basic elements still stand true. Rika hasn't yet realized what Iwanaga's 5-head strategy is, as she is only taking care of the surface-level conclusion. Having prepared everything in the chamber, Iwanaga prepares to unload the full extent of her powers. She helps Kuro weave the future he couldn't grasp on his own. Iwanaga proposes her fourth and final solution, which comprises the same foundation as the first three. Iwanaga notes that Steel Lady Nanase is a creation who killed Terada. The users are pumped and excited to hear the climax of the story. Iwanaga drops a bombshell, saying that Steel Lady Nanase is a creation of Nanase herself, who is in fact alive. Iwanaga proposes that the one who died at the construction site was her look-alike, intended to seem like she died. The real Nanase is alive to this day. Of course, this premise is met with immediate scrutiny and odd objections from all users. Iwanaga explains that Nanase stumbled across a girl who looked identical to her in proportions and height. What she did was manipulate this mystery girl into installing fingerprints all over her room. Not only that, she made her cooperate as the idol personality known as Nanase. She told the mystery girl to meet at the construction site at night. When they met at the location, the real Nanase knocked her out before dropping steel beams on her body. The mystery girl was killed, and it looked like Nanase was the one who died. Having perfectly faked her death, Nanase changed her identity under the mystery girl. Iwanaga summarizes that the real Nanase is, in fact, alive and well. As for the Steel Lady Nanase, Iwanaga's solutions are really actually effective in persuading the forum. Instead of contemplating the existence of the Steel Lady Nanase, they're thinking of ways she could be disproved instead. Everyone on the platform is a geek crunching their keys for a solution. The final showdown begins with Kuro and Rika stabbing each other to activate the ability to make future decisions. The users argued and argued against each other until exhaustion. Nanase tries to attack Kuro, but her spirit is waning from the crumbling belief of the people. Instead of Rika, it is Kuro who has captured the path instead. Iwanaga hits the nail on the head by claiming that the real Nanase created a character version of herself, so that no one remembers her. She ensured of her body swapping went under the radar by creating an urban legend surrounding herself. Finally, Iwanova states that the owner of this website is in fact the real Nanase who is responsible for creating the hype around her own character. Saki and Rika are both stunned. Iwanova has successfully shattered the image of Steel Lady Nanase and replaced it with a fictional Nanase of her own. Even though the site owner is actually Rika, Iwanova's strategy of half-truths finally paid off as people crossed each other heavily in favor of Iwanova's claims. As for the case of the detective, Iwanova states that Terada recognized and saw through Nanase's disguise. Threatened that her life was going to be over, Nanase impulsively knocked him out of commission before killing the detective and making it seem like it was the work of the creepy Steel Mommy. With the vengeful spirit's strength fading more and more, Kuro took his chances, beating her up. Iwanova's reign has finally ended. She is waiting for a reply to her massive twit longer. She has already isolated Rika by pinning the blame on her under Nanase's identity. Iwanova declares that Nanase Karen is the true killer, who is shattering the fictional character. Seki is amazed that Iwanova was able to pull off so much like that. She wonders what would happen if Rika outright rejects the claims. Iwanova emphasizes that no one would believe the stupid idiot. As for Kuro, his job got infinitely easier thanks to Iwanova's aid in getting closer to the truth and drawing him a concrete future. Rika is defeated, allowing Kuro to land a finishing blow with the same steel beam that ended Nanase's original life. Nanase crumbles to dust once and for all, ending this major battle. In the battle of war and strategy, Iwanova's intelligence reigns supreme over Rika. Iwanova received mail from Rika openly conceding her defeat in the fight and hinting at another battle in the future. Iwanova isn't surprised because the creatures of the imagination can give birth to all kinds of spirits and yokai alike. In fact, Iwanova hints that one could even create a god. The lowly reunites with her lover and offers him a banana. In exchange, she wants his banana later, but Kuro thinks it's an inappropriate joke for the moment because he's out here barely breathing after taking so many hits for her. Thanks to Iwanova's efforts, the yokai and the other spirits celebrate in happiness, praising their goddess of wisdom for dispelling yet another threat to them. She's enjoying the praise, but Kuro has to cut it short because Saki's out here dying inside the car thanks to the gigantic skeleton spirit. Returning home, Iwanova is knocked out for life. Kuro apologizes to Saki for her trouble and being unable to save Terada. In the following few days, all traces of Steel Lady Nanase were eradicated from the internet. The website was put down by Rika, so people had to flock to other forums. This time, they discussed the possibility of the existence of the real Nanase instead. Everything was put into so much consideration that Seki is scared of making Iwanova her own enemy. She definitely doesn't want to be clapped by her like that in public. Seki resumes her police duty as it has become a part of normal life. She meets Kuro, who shares a meal with her. Kuro tells Saki that he has accepted reality for what it is by accepting his immortal body. He knows that his age factor will let him die of old age, so he is content with that outcome. However, his cousin Rika does not share that ambition. She considers it a curse and wants to be returned to her human state. That is the reason she stayed at the university hospital for medical treatment. Saki connects the dots and finally begins to realize that Rika's true objective is to create a godlike entity that could break her curse someday. Kuro doesn't understand Rika's thought process and thinks that she'll forever stay a monster, her true nature. Knowing that Rika is to return in the future, Kuro knows that Iwanova will be prepared to fend her off to maintain the natural balance of the world, which also means he will have to support his girlfriend. In a matter of a few minutes, both Kuro and Saki affirm to each other that they'll never get back together again. Both of them reach closure at once. Kuro is specifically worried for Iwanova, who is more fearless than Kuro despite his immortal body. Kuro is afraid that she'll be dragged into a number of obstacles in the future, since Rika now knows that Iwanova is the key player on their team instead. She will exclusively target Iwanova to make sure such a failure never occurs again. Kuro doesn't want to let Iwanova die because he thinks she truly deserves happiness. In the next scene, Kuro and Saki separate from each other, and while Saki's fears have still not dissipated, she is glad that there are protectors of the city watching over at night. Cutting back to our favorite Loli, who woke up after 28 hours of sleep. Iwanova feels concerned that Kuro did something with Saki behind her back. She's so anxious that she hops out of the bath and jumps right on top of Kuro's body. The next day, they depart from the hotel and end up in a garden. Iwanova is annoyed having napped for 28 hours and shares that Rika will definitely attack them soon enough. That's why Iwanova has prepped her monsters to inform her of any discrepancies. Kuro and Iwanova talk about the mythological princess Iwanova, who made mortality possible for herself and her lover. Kuro is reminded of that story because he's immortal and performs the ultimate W-Rees by calling her Princess Iwanova. This guy doubles down by straight up telling her she's prettier than any flower out there. If anyone wants to learn how to steal bitches, This man is the trusted sensei you should trust. The Iwanaga blushes but plays hard to get. The two of them finally hold hands, committing the worst sin known in Anon. Iwanaga is truthfully unafraid of the schemes of Rika, who is hellbent on creating a godly creature that breaks her free. Iwanaga thinks that the logical and illogical are intertwined and that the world of spirits is equally important. Whatever opponents they will face ahead, the immortal Kuro and the goddess of wisdom Iwanaga are prepared to win. Kuro and Iwanaga are humanly inhuman in a way that separates them from the rest of the world. Kuro is an immortal boy who simultaneously has the ability to determine the future upon death. Iwanaga is the goddess of wisdom and is able to communicate with unnatural beings such as the yokai and the ayakashi. Having encountered Kuro first at the hospital, Iwanaga developed a crush on him and decided to pursue her ambitions when he broke up with his ex-girlfriend. After a 2-year time skip, Kuro and Iwanaga pursue a meaningful relationship, growing closer to each other. They join together to solve the mystery of the evil spirit of an idol that refuses to die by conventional means. The creature made of delusions forces our heroes to devise a strategy that requires persuasion and wit to solve the mystery of the idol's death once and for all.